Emergency managers play a central role in preparing for, responding to, and recovering from cyber incidents in their jurisdictions. Although they are not expected to be technical experts on cyber incidents, they do need to understand and prepare for the potential impacts of a cyber incident on their communities, as well as on their emergency operations. FEMA's Planning Considerations for Cyber Incidents Guidance for Emergency Managers, available at FEMA.gov, provides information and resources on the role emergency managers may play in planning for cyber incidents in their communities. Critical aspects of society rely heavily on technology and cyber connections. From phones to transportation and utilities, key functions rely on cyber communications to communicate and operate. Although this increased interconnectedness provides better and more efficient services, it also means that cyber incidents may have far-reaching and devastating impacts. An interruption in one organization or system, regardless of cause, may have widespread impacts across the network. In the worst cases, this puts lives at risk and causes significant economic challenges. For this reason, it is increasingly important to have a cyber incident response plan in place to enable quick, effective resolution when an incident occurs. To effectively prepare for cyber incidents, emergency managers and planners must first understand how the critical services and operations in their community rely on cyber systems. This knowledge helps planning teams determine the response actions and resources that may be needed in a cyber incident, as well as how to prioritize restoration efforts. Let's explore how we can identify and prioritize cyber-related services and assets in our jurisdictions.
The first step is to identify and document the critical services in the community that rely on cyber assets. The planning team may start by creating a list of known critical services in the jurisdiction, and then develop a list of the critical infrastructure that supports each critical service. It may be helpful to use FEMA's Community Lifelines as a starting point when identifying critical services, as they represent fundamental services within a community that enable other aspects of society to function. During this process, the team should also document the service owners and operators associated with each critical service and related critical infrastructure. Once known critical services and their owners and operators have been recorded, the team may then move to identify other related services.
The next step is to identify and document dependencies. When identifying dependencies, it is important to consider upstream dependencies, meaning products or services provided to a jurisdiction by an external organization that are needed to support operations. Examples include electricity, telephone communications, and internet access. Internal dependencies, which are the interactions among internal services, operations, functions, and information in the jurisdiction. Examples include websites that are dependent on database servers or computer systems that rely on computer network equipment. And finally, downstream dependencies, which are services provided by a jurisdiction to its residents or other jurisdictions. Examples include 911 services, drinking and wastewater treatment, and traffic control. Engaging with service owners and operators is critical in this identification process. They can provide the most detailed and accurate information on system dependencies and vulnerabilities, as well as valuable guidance on how to determine whether the service could remain operational during and following an incident. Engaging owners and operators also helps establish relationships with staff before an incident occurs, which fosters shared understanding of vulnerabilities and impacts to aid effective planning.
The third and final step is identifying the likely consequences of service interruptions that are caused by the loss or disruption of another service or cyber asset. Again, collaboration with service owners and operators is critical. As part of this effort, it is important to determine whether the consequence would occur immediately after an incident or sometime later. The planning team can capture all of the information gained throughout this process in a critical services and dependencies inventory, which documents critical services, infrastructure, assets, associated owners and operators, other key personnel, and the dependencies among their systems. Once a jurisdiction has identified and assessed their cyber assets and dependencies, It can then move to prioritizing and planning. As part of this prioritization process, the planning team, along with the system owners and operators, consider what redundancies or backups are available if upstream or internal dependencies were disrupted. For example, some services may be able to run manually or relocated to a non-impacted location. Through this process, the planning team will have a clearer understanding of what systems are most critical, what is required to operate those systems, and what alternative methods are available for operating those services. The planning team uses this information to establish priorities for services, determine how best to apply limited resources, and identify the order of restoration efforts.
By identifying and prioritizing critical cyber assets and ensuring close coordination with service owners and operators, emergency managers can be better prepared to effectively plan, respond, and recover from cyber incidents. For more information on emergency managers preparing for cyber incidents, check out FEMA's Planning Considerations for Cyber Incidents, Guidance for Emergency Managers, available at FEMA.gov.